Greetings, everyone. This is Amatz here. I'm back with you once again. Boy, I tell you, so much is going on, so much is happening, and I had quite a few other teachings and presentations to post, but I sort of put those on the back burner because so much is happening, and I just wanted to come on and just talk about them because the Most High, He has said that in these last days that He'll give many of us visions and we will dream dreams. And in light of what is happening right now around us, to take a phrase from the current president, warp speed, it brings me back to a dream that the Most High gave me some years ago. But before I do that, I wanted to just, touch on some things. As you see here, before you see an image here, and I will caption this image, just that it was written. The Marines deployed on the streets of LA. Now, this is a huge development because being someone that was in the Marine Corps in this country, there's certain things that I understand that most people do not. And that is the Marines being deployed, in particular, on the streets in these United States is very significant. The only time that this has happened was when they had this terrible earthquake, I think back in the 90s, I think it was, or in LA. And of course they were deployed as a part of search and rescue, but they were not armed. They were not being used as a force against the people, but as a force, as a part of rescuing those that were injured. Now, let's break this down a bit so everyone can have clarity. The Marines being deployed onto the streets is extremely significant. And I'm going to go into the dream that the Most High gave me some years ago and tie it in with a message to our people as to why we need to be aware of what is happening and why this is being done and what is really the end game. And so, as I start by telling you this dream, I'm not going to tell you all of it because there's a part of it because of certain things that have happened in between. That part of the dream is not necessary to share, but I'll share the crux of it. So I remember when I had this dream, and I really prayed about it a lot before the Most High, and I decided to share it with others. There are many people, that said to me, "Oh, this could never happen. You're crazy," and of course, you know how these things are. But here we go. I'm not going to talk too much more, but here we go. So, some years ago, the Most High gave me a dream that was very surreal. And he showed me what would happen here, or happen in the U.S. at a particular period of time. Now, I must admit that when I had the dream, it so troubled my spirit that, I thought that it was imminent. But though it did not happen, or things began to unfold during the time that I thought it would have, we should still remember that, the Most High operates outside of our time. He operates within His time. And it is written that one day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day in how He operates. So in the dream, I had left my family and in my truck and had gone out to the supermarket. And it's a place that we usually, we go most of the time to get our food stuff. Now, when I left home, everything was as normal as it would have been any other day that I made this trip. And I got to the supermarket, I did what I had to do. But when I came out of the supermarket, it was as if things had transformed within an hour. When I came out, as far as the eyes could see, there were school buses. And in the US, they use these yellow school buses, of course, to transport the children to and from school. And as far as the eyes could see, there were hundreds, if not thousands of them. But also on the streets was the military, the US military. Hundreds, if not thousands of them everywhere. And they were just rounding people up. They were taking people out of their cars. They were transporting everybody and taking them to different holding areas to be detained. And of course, I was taken. Now, when I got to the place where they were processing people, all I was thinking about was my family. And as I reached the woman that was, of course, in military fatigues processing people, I says, I've got to think of something because my family's not with me. They're home. They're expecting me to return and they have no idea what's going on. So I decided to use my brain a bit. When I got up to the lady, I said, well, if you're going to obviously detain me, I'd like to have my family with me. And I said, my wife just had a baby, and she's still in her recovery stage. Those 6 weeks or so, and is there any way that I can retrieve my family? So I took my wallet out. I took out, of course, I was using my brain because though my wife did have a baby, it was now almost, I would say almost 2 years into after our child was born. So I took out a photograph that I had in my wallet of my daughter not long after she was born, and I showed it to them. So the woman paused for a bit and she looked at me and she said, okay, I'm going to give you this paper. I'm going to stamp it. It will allow you to pass. You're going to go and get your family and return. But if you keep in mind that if you don't return, we're going to find you. So she gave me a piece of paper. She stamped it. I went out. They allowed me to get back into my vehicle and I drove home. Now, I got home. I went in, I closed all the blinds, and of course it was daytime, and I told my family what had happened, and I says, well, we're just going to be quiet and still, and we're going to pray. And so, maybe about an hour and a half or so, 2 hours later, I heard all this commotion outside, and you could hear vehicles and, outside. So I looked through the blinds, and there, as I looked through the blinds, the military was in the neighborhood, and they were going from house to house, and they were taking people out of their homes, rounding them up, putting them into the buses, and leaving with them. But strangely enough, and of course the hand of the Most High, they did not stop at our house. They just walked right by and kept going. So I'm going to stop the dream there. The rest of the dream is not really pertinent to my point. But the point I'm making is that this was shown, and as we look at the things that are happening around us at this time, we're seeing that this is going to happen. All that is happening right now is a precursor of what is to come. And anyone that doesn't see it, don't want to see it, or is not supposed to see it. But for our people, the Most High gives these visions and these dreams to His people, to His called out, to His chosen, that we are able to, one, save our families, and by extension our larger family, our people which were taken away into this captivity, because everything is going to repeat. And just as it was the first time, when we came out of Mitzrayim, when our forefathers came out of Mitzrayim the first time, this time is a bit different. Yes, they will refuse to let us go, but here is the difference. The difference is that the wicked one knows the word. The wicked one knows what happened last time. And so what will happen now is that the wicked one will try to prevent the exodus of the Most High's people by taking extreme actions to circumvent or to not allow what they know, because the time of our captivity is up, is going to happen. Now this place, this Mitzrayim that we're in, is the head. The other arms are all the Western nations, right? That also, same people that that took us, and we see a lot of these same things are happening also in these other countries, but our focus is just the U.S. And so, before I continue to really talk more, I'm going to put up a series of videos here for everyone to see, and then I'm going to come back in for commentary.
So, with our orders, directed by the President, the Secretary of Defense has mobilized. Right now it's 4,700 personnel, so 4,000 from the California National Guard, 700 Marines. And our mission is to protect federal agencies, our federal partners, their personnel as they conduct their federal mission, and even more in particular as they do the enforcement of federal law, and then also to protect all federal assets and federal facilities that are located in the locations where there have been demonstrations lately. On Title 10, on federal orders, these soldiers do not conduct law enforcement operations, that like arrests or search and seizure. They are strictly used for the protection of the federal personnel as they conduct their operations and to protect them, to allow them to do their federal mission. So strictly for the protection of the federal personnel and the protection of the federal building, they're allowed to temporarily detain and wait for law enforcement to come and arrest them. They do not do any arrest. They are strictly there to detain, to wait for law enforcement to come and handle those demonstrators. Well, we go through extensive training to do this. They are trained to use their weapons, to actually have their weapons, to do their personal protection. They're doing that. But this is crowd control. This is stuff that we do not do usually. And this is working with federal law enforcement and really working. They're in the lead. We're supporting them. It's really about protecting federal facilities and federal personnel as they do their job.
Okay, so I wanted to make a slight correction. The Marines were deployed in 1992 during the Rodney King riots, after the verdict was given of the officers who had beaten Rodney King as being not guilty. However, that situation was vastly different than what we have now, but I just wanted to make that correction as a point of reference. Now, we see here that the Marines were deployed on the streets to, again, support local law enforcement and mainly ICE agents as they sought to detain people and deport them out of the country. Now, this in itself had never happened, but also more importantly, a lot of these people were being detained in places where their relatives could not find them, or they were detained and quickly sent out of the country to El Salvador. Now, why is this important? It's important because the speed at which this is happening coincides with the end of the captivity of our people in the Four Corners, and this being the head of the snake, the United States. It's imperative that all this is happening with speed. Now, I wanted to say that when Masha went down to Pharaoh the first time, when our people were in Mitzrayim, aka Egypt, people are of the mind, because of what was removed from the scripture, that it happened over a period of days. It did not. It happened over a period of 6 years. And on the 7th year, you can say a Sabbat, our people came out. Now, if we count 2019, which is when the year that our captivity would have ended, or if you want to call it even 2020, to 2025, we're looking at 6 years. So we're beginning to enter the beginning of the 7th year. And so things are going to ramp up, and they're going to happen very quickly. And as we see, the Marines have not been removed from the from California and from that area. As a matter of fact, they have been deployed to the borders under the pretext that they are there to prevent more quote-unquote migrants from coming into the country. But if we go back and we go to government website, we are told that 0%, no one has crossed over into the U.S. In the past month. So, if that is the case, one, why are the Marines still deployed? Not just in California, but along the border stretching from California through to Texas. Additionally, why are detention centers being opened up across the country? As a matter of fact, recently, just a few days ago, the Trump let me kind of go back. The governor of Florida decided to open up what they called New Alcatraz in the Florida Everglades, which is supposedly a migrant detention center. And after visiting the site, Trump made a statement that his focus is to open up hundreds, if not thousands, of detention centers across the entire country. How can this be? No. What is happening here, family, Yasharal, is that everything is moving at warp speed because the Most High is going to begin to move soon. And when that happens, there will be many decisions that will be made to detain our people. We see that there is a push to do away with the 14th Amendment, which, again, in itself was really not a very strong amendment anyway. It was worded in the way it was worded for a reason. That down the road it could easily be challenged, if not even amended and removed. And if that is the case, that would remove all safeguards with respect to quote-unquote black people of descendants of slaves in this country. And we also see that there is the move to get rid of what is called birthright citizenship, as well as those that are naturalized. And naturalized are those that are people that have come from other countries that have become citizens. So we're going to see what is going to happen. I'm going to put up another couple of videos and I will come back with some commentary to end, and there will be a follow-up to this. All right. See you in a bit.
You know, snakes are fast, but alligators are, but we're going to teach them how to run away from an alligator, okay, if they escape prison.
U.S. President Donald Trump traveled to Florida Tuesday to inspect the site of a controversial new migrant detention center dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. Now, this remote facility is being reconfigured at a cost of $450 million U.S. to hold undocumented immigrants in the middle of the Everglades.
Is the model going forward, Mr. President?
It can be. I mean, you don't always have land so beautiful and so secure. We have a lot of bodyguards and a lot of cops that are in the form of alligators. You don't have to pay them so much. But I wouldn't want to run through the Everglades for long. It will keep people where they're supposed to be. This is a very important thing.
We've got very red states that should be doing this just as much as Florida's doing. That will increase their numbers. And then what happens is you'll have a lot of people that will deport on their own because they don't want to end up in an Alligator Alcatraz or some of those other places. So I think this is a model, but we need other states to step up.
The Florida Everglades to open America's newest migrant detention center. It's incredibly built, and you're seeing that yourself. That's why I said let the press join us on our walk so they can see what's happening. It's known as Alligator Alcatraz, which is very appropriate because I looked outside and that's not a place I want to go hiking anytime soon. But very soon this facility will house some of the most menacing migrants, some of the most vicious people on the planet. We're surrounded by miles of treacherous swampland, and the only way out is really deportation. And a lot of these people are self-deporting back to their country.
So let's take a look at some of the things that are happening to build a foundation for what is to come. Let's read this snapshot here. So Trump's executive order is also ominous in an effort to deliberately narrow the scope of essential U.S. constitutional protections. In 1868, constitutional amendments ended chattel slavery, established citizenship to newly freed black people, and granted equal protection under the law. The 14th Amendment, one of these civil rights amendments, including the citizenship clause, laid out principles that we've relied on, not always successfully, to ward off discrimination for more than a century. Backsliding on commitments to justice and equality is a dangerous policy choice. So we see here that the most important thing, excuse me, is to, not that it really served us on a whole anyway. On paper, it is just really smoke and mirrors. But to completely get rid of it, of course, takes us into a completely different, for the lack of a better term, dimension. So, we have to really take a look at what is going on, and to be able to ensure that we are armed, that we're ready, that we are paying attention, and that we are focused on what is being done, and do not think that it's just an arbitrary thing because, quote unquote, some migrants are finding themselves into the country. It is far more than that. It is ensuring that when the process begins, that no one is able to have any type of recourse or any way to say that they can use the law to help them escape, I would say, or work around what is coming. And I'm sorry, let's continue to read. It says the 14th Amendment, which was ratified in 1868, a cornerstone of American constitutional law, is primarily focused on citizenship, equal protection, and what is known as due process. It addresses citizenship by declaring that all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of both the United States and the state they reside in. It also establishes principle of equal protection under the law, preventing states from denying any person within their jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Furthermore, it incorporates the Due Process Clause, ensuring that no state can deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without the process of law. Pardon me. So we see that, let's look at this last sentence. It says, is ensuring that no state can deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. So this is not saying here that you cannot be deprived. It's saying that you just have to be able to pass through due process of law. Now, that in itself is quite laughable. But nonetheless, the focus here is on what they call due process, which is giving the person the opportunity to be able to fight and represent themselves. If it is that they find themselves in a place in which they feel that they're being abused by the system, have been accused of something, you have the right to be able to have due process. But let's listen to what Trump has said with respect to due process.
So let's talk about this, because obviously you've had a back and forth with the Supreme Court. In a 9-0 decision, the Supreme Court directed your administration to facilitate the return, you've talked about this in the past, of Kilmar Abrego Garcia from a prison in El Salvador, whose deportation your administration called an administrative error. You said in a recent interview you could bring him back, but you won't. Are you defying the Supreme Court, sir?
No, I'm relying on the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, who's very capable, doing a great job, because I'm not involved in the legality or the illegality. I have lawyers to do that, and that's why I have a great DOJ. We have a great one. We had a very corrupt one before. Now we have a great one. And they're not viewing the decision the way you said it. They don't view it that way at all. They think it's a totally different decision.
Well, you say you have the power to bring him back, though. Your attorney general says, quote, that's up to El Salvador. Just to put a fine point on this, do you have the power to bring Abrego Garcia back as the Supreme Court?
Well, I have the power to ask for him to come back if I'm instructed by the attorney general that it's legal to do so. But the decision as to whether or not he should come back will be the head of El Salvador. He's a very capable man.
Well, you know, and your attorney general has said the issue is with that word facilitate. Will you seek clarification from the Supreme Court? Do you need to go back to the Supreme Court?
We may do that. I was asking about that. We may do that.
Your Secretary of State says everyone who's here, citizens and non-citizens, deserve due process. Do you agree, Mr. President?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
Well, the Fifth Amendment says
I don't know.
as
It seems it might say that, but if you're talking about that, then we'd have to have 1 million or 2 million or 3 million trials. We have thousands of people that are some murderers and some drug dealers and some of the worst people on earth. Some of the worst, most dangerous people on earth. And I was elected to get them the hell out of here, and the courts are holding me from doing it.
But even given those numbers that you're talking about, don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?
I don't know. I have to respond by saying again, I have brilliant lawyers that work for me, and they are going to obviously follow what the Supreme Court said. What you said is not what I heard the Supreme Court said. They have a different interpretation.
Is anyone in your administration right now in contact with El Salvador about returning Abrego Garcia to the United States?
I don't know. You'd have to ask the Attorney General that question.
So let's see what is happening as of today. We see in this title that new Hegseth leak reveals secret plan for years of truce on U.S. streets. And so for those of you that think that this cannot happen, they're telling you that it's going to happen. It's unprecedented. And there's no way to convince anyone that this is being done because of a illegal migrant program. Let's read. The Department of Homeland Security is looking to boost its deployment of the military on the streets of the U.S. in order to help carry out Donald Trump's immigration policies, according to a leaked memo written by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The document obtained by the New Republic details plans for how the Trump administration can use the military to assist with domestic law enforcement as a part of its mass deportation agenda for years to come. What does it say? What does it say? It says for years to come. I'm going to go back to a quote that Trump made when he was running. But let's continue and see what it's saying. It goes on to say that Carrie Lee, senior fellow at the German Marshall Fund, told the New Republic the contents of the memo are disturbing and outline intent to use the military within the United States at a level not seen since Japanese internment. The military is the most powerful coercive tool our country has. We don't want the military doing law enforcement, she said. Phil Hegseth, who works inside the Pentagon as a liaison of the Department of Homeland Security and as a senior advisor to the Defense Secretary, previously made headline news after it was alleged his brother discussed the Trump administration plans to attack Yemen with him on a messaging app during the Signalgate controversy. This is not pertinent, but I'm just reading because I want to make sure there's transparency in everything that I'm placing here. You can find this article on the internet. It is now alleged to have he is now alleged to have written a memo that outlines a July 21st meeting between senior DHS and Pentagon officials discussing how the departments could coordinate in defense of the homeland. That includes convincing leading military officials such as General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, of the urgency of the so-called Homeland Defense Mission. The memo also suggests the ramping up of the military deployment as needed as foreign gangs and drug cartels that Trump has listed as terrorist organizations pose a similar threat to Al-Qaeda or ISIS cells and fighters operating freely in the United States. I was not aware that ISIS cells were operating freely in the U.S. But I'm going to leave you with a video that should really put into context rather, and into view what is coming down the road. Wake up, Yasharal. Wake up. Return to the Most High. Seek His face. And He says that we must deliver ourselves. It is written that when these days come, that only those found within the borders of His land will He protect.
Winning is tough. I always said winning is somewhat maybe innate. Maybe it's just something you have. You know, you have the winning gene. My uncle was a great professor and scientist and engineer, Dr. John Trump at MIT. Good genes, very good genes, okay? One of the smartest people in the history of MIT in my blood. If you believe in genes, some do, some don't. But I had an uncle who was a professor at MIT. Believe me, if it's good genes, we believe in genes, right? We're allowed to say that. Do we believe in the gene thing? I mean, I do, right? You know, I do. Like they used to say, Secretariat doesn't produce slow horses. A lot of it's about the genes, isn't it? Don't you believe? The racehorse theory, you think was so different? Your brother is in the NHL, right? Tell me about genes. Is he a good player? When you have 111 wins, that's in your blood, right? It's got to be in the blood. You said you're 90 years old? That's great, because you have good genes. Good genes. You have good genes. Good genes. You believe in genes? He's got good genes. You have very good genes. Just remember the president. You have great genes. These are great women, great men. Frankly, great genes. You have great genes. The best genes I've ever seen. Those genes. Those two young men have the greatest genes anyone's ever had. Sarah is really a good person and a nice person, very capable. She's got a lot of the father's genes because her father is great. Mike Huckabee. They have good genes in the Pence family, don't they? Her father is Franklin Graham. And if you believe in genes, you got to go with those genes. You can't get any better. To sit here and act like a perfect little, wonderful, innocent angel. I know you too well. I knew your father too well. That's not your Gene. Gene, this is a man of great genes. His name is Gene. He has good genes, though. You know, he's got good genes, right? The Scalia genes. You don't get better than that, do you? That Scalia has very good genes. Where's Scalia? He has very good genes, that guy, I'll tell you. Scalia, he's got the Scalia genes, right? We all know what that means. Gene Scalia, good bloodline. Gene Scalia. A man named Henry Ford, good bloodlines, good bloodlines. If you believe in that stuff, you got good blood. He is a very intense individual, like that's the bloodlines, you know, from this family. And boy, that father was good. He was tough. I knew her father, and I tell you, she's got good genes, that I can tell you. Good genes for everything. A young man who is born with a great gene, because I know his father and how great a politician he was. A man with really fantastic genes. Got to have, like, the best genes in the world. Although you had an ex-governor here that had very good genes, too. We have his son in the audience, too. We have good stuff. We have great genes in this room. We have smart people. Good genes you have, good genes. You have good genes, you know that, right? You have good genes. It's in the genes, it's in the blood, right? It's in the blood.
Would you like to have a 3,000-year bloodline for the
I think it would be great. I don't know what I'd be doing for the rest of the time, but I think it would be great. You know, I'm proud to have that German blood. There's no question about it. Great stuff.